know, we right.
Just to get a little bit more. Oh, yeah. You guys take that and scratch it a little bit. Too shiny, they.
All right, call to order a regular meeting of the Planning Commission. Roll call, Phyllis?
Chairperson Bob McCool,
Here.
Vice Chairperson Lisa Ritchie, Commissioners Phyllis Harden here, David Harper,
Here.
Jerry Malia,
Here.
Ben Miller, Jason Reese,
Here.
Anthony Stewart,
Here.
Steve Whitty,
Here.
Planner Stephen Williams,
Here.
Attorney Dan Harvey.
Here. All right, good time for public comment on consent agenda, non-agenda items. I don't see any public here. I assume you guys are all here for the hearing. All right, excellent. We do have an item to talk about chairperson and vice chairperson. Lisa's not here though, nor is Ben, so I was considering whether we want to push that off a little bit, or I could get some feedback here.
Has she indicated whether, if she was nominated, that she would want to take the position of vice chair at all, or?
I've not been able to get a hold of
No,
her before,
okay.
so we don't know. Does anybody else? I guess we could do nominations. That would be fine. But
Yeah, maybe we could do nominations if for whatever reason somebody wants to nominate, Lisa. I mean, obviously her not being here, we wouldn't be able to kind of move
we won't
forward with
vote.
that.
Yeah, we wouldn't vote. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and I have no idea. Does anybody want to nominate themselves or anyone else for something? I am more than delighted to pass the baton if somebody would like to do that. So I'm also happy to continue.
Do we know?
Rush to volunteer.
Do we know that Ben Harper wanted to step up into
I don't know whether he does
a
or
leadership
not.
role?
We could see if you'd like to nominate him, we'll find out. You might.
Okay, well, I'd like to nominate Ben Harper.
Ben Miller.
Ben Miller, excuse me.
Ben Miller. Okay. You sure you didn't mean?
I was looking at him.
Yeah. Chair, vice chair,
As
vote?
chairman of the Planning Commission.
You could just ask to see if there's any other nominations too, at this point.
Oh, I'll leave it if he'll take it. Yeah, what do you have? Yeah.
I was going to say, if you're willing to serve another term, I would like to nominate Bob McCool for chairperson.
I second.
Then we want to, I'll nominate.
Question, if
yes.
Lisa, well, if Ben, we don't know if Ben wants to, right?
Right.
And so should we nominate Lisa just, so we have, because if we don't nominate him now, can we nominate him next time?
You could just use this opportunity to, take the pulse of
Yeah.
who's ever
Yeah.
interested,
Yeah.
and then since he's not here.
So we've got Ben, myself, yeah, Lisa.
Lisa would watch the video and see what happened.
Yeah. She's chair and vice chair.
And she's doing minutes all of a sudden.
Exactly. How'd that happen?
Okay, I'll nominate Lisa Ritchie for vice chair.
Okay.
I will second that.
All right. Okay, so we have three nominations. You just want to hold this maybe till next meeting? Get
Yeah,
a feel
you
for the
may-
Ben even wants to accept it. And
Yeah, you could just do kind of a, motion continue this and
Okay.
we can come back to it on the next meeting.
You said we should have a motion to come back?
Yeah, why don't we do that?
So let's see, I guess I can try to do that. I'll move that we postpone the election of the nominations for chairperson and vice chairperson to the next regular scheduled meeting.
I second the motion.
All right, we have a second from Jerry Mallier. All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. Okay. All right, we have a consent agenda. We have minutes from October 29th and minutes from November 19th. The date that's on the agenda is off, so it is for November 19th minutes. I'll entertain a motion. Why don't we start with the minutes of October 29th? And a motion by David Harper to accept. Second.
Second.
Commissioner one abstention. You weren't
No, I
here?
don't.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And we have one abstention. Commissioner Reese. And then minutes of November 19th. I'll need a motion. Move, David Harper. Second.
I'll second.
Second, Commissioner Stewart. All in favor? Okay. Right, and one abstention. Okay. And Commissioner Reese. All right, those passed. All right, next we've got a public hearing to review and comment on Rock Creek Ranch filing number 20D, final plat site plan number 36, the Verizon Wireless macro site at Community Park to replace an 81-foot light pole with a 100-foot telecommunication antenna/light pole along the first baseline at Scanlon Field, and construct an associated equipment platform near the Franco ditch and to establish associated utility easements within the town property. That hearing is open. We have proof of publication.
Yes, I do.
And do we have a presentation from staff or just?
Yeah, I'll go over the basics of it and then turn it over to the applicant to flesh it out for you.
Sounds good.
So Stephen Williams, town staff, tonight's development application, as stated, relates to a macro telecommunications facility that it's proposed to be located. Can you turn off the light? I'm sorry. Within Superior's Community Park, as generally illustrated here. The applicants Verizon Wireless and Reliant Land Services are here tonight and have a presentation of their own. The proposal includes a 100-foot tall telecommunications pole and associated ground level equipment, which are both intended to work in conjunction with the future small cell installations to improve wireless service throughout town. I'm going to turn it on in order for it to work. There we go. The proposed installation would occur within Superior's Community Park, which generally lies north of Colton Road, between Indiana Street and Community Park Drive. So, oops. Indiana Street is here, and Community Park Drive is here. Community Park is the area basically from Rock Creek Parkway, and then north of the Safeway development. Includes all those the ball fields, as well as the open space extending out to Indiana. So this aerial generally illustrates where Community Park lies within Superior. It's a fairly central location. And then the star here indicates where the telecommunications pole is proposed within the park. This slide provides a closer look at Community Park. And then this is the site plan. So here is that parking lot that's shown here, and then these are the two locations. So one is just kind of south of first base, and then and that's where that pole would be, and then the equipment platform location is just south along the ditch amongst the existing vegetation there. So there's we'll just kind of run through what's included with the application material. So these are just overhead views. This is of the equipment platform. It is shown to measure 9 feet wide by 20 feet. That's the actual physical structure, and then the lease area is this larger rectangle around it. These kind of colored areas to the south and to the north are the underground utility locations. So there aren't any easements associated with this. At the end of the day, they're all going to be covered with a lease agreement, and that will be considered by the town board at their review of this on the 27th. So moving over to the right, this is an overhead view of the antennas. So it is shown that they're going to have 3 kind of arrays of antennas, 4 antennas on each array. This is fairly standard that, they cast out in each direction. The dimension here is roughly 12.5 feet wide for each array. And then this was kind of a view looking to the west. So the photo on the top left of the same type of view that they're showing in a perspective view, just kind of give you an idea of height and then the separation as well as the grade that exists within Community Park between the two improvements proposed. This sheet just is a kind of like an elevation drawing view of what is proposed. This is obviously the telecommunication pole at an 81-foot height. This pole that's getting replaced, that same light fixture is going to be mounted at the same height. And then above that, extending up to 100 feet, is the additional height that's requested to accommodate the cell tower or the cell antennas proposed. And then just south of that, this is the front view of that equipment platform, which would include a 6-foot-tall fence that surrounds it to enclose the cabinet area that was shown on this previous slide. So
6 feet, I thought it's 8 feet.
I think it is 8 feet, excuse me, I apologize. So the equipment platform would initially include these 2 cabinets and then a transformer, and then what they refer to as an ILC. I have to integrated load center. Thank you very much. But they also have capacity to incorporate 2 more cabinets in the future should they need it. And then moving back, so this is just the front view of that. This is where they'd access it. There's a gate on the front, which would face north, and then this is the side view perspective of it. And then in addition to the standard materials that they included with their application, they have these kind of perspective drawings, renderings really, that show like the existing pole, and this is a photograph, and then they've rendered it to show you what it'll look like from different vantages. So this vantage, it's easier to see, but this is from, let me see. This is actually taken from right field within the softball field, looking to the southwest. Actually, to the southeast, excuse me. And then this view is taken from Colton Road, looking to the northeast. Again, that's the pole. This is a much smaller image, but that's where it would that addition would occur. And this is taken from within Community Park, looking back to the east. And then this vantage is actually of that equipment, that screened equipment platform, looking more southeast. And then again from the north side of the field. And then this is from the Coal Creek Regional Trail. Maybe this one is the one that's further north, excuse me. No, they're both from the north side of the field. This one's just further to the northwest, looking back down at that antenna. So that's, I'm losing my mouse. There we go. It's this one, shown the antenna there. So staff has reviewed this for consistency with the final plat site plan requirements within Rock Creek. And it's done as a final plat site plan versus a special use review because special use reviews aren't contemplated within the final plat site plan or the PUD for Rock Creek. So staff is recommending approval. I'll turn it over to the applicant and give you guys the mouse. But if you guys have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer those now, or we can turn it over to the applicant.
Is there a view from McCaslin of that fence or no? Or is it even visible with that rise?
Oh, from
Or McCaslin, I'm sorry, from Colton.
Of the fence?
Colton.
Not McCaslin.
No, there's not one in their application materials.
Okay.
But if you see the kind of the perspective view.
Yeah, it looks like there's a rise in elevation even from Colton up a little bit. But.
Yeah, and the vegetation kind of actually sits on that backside primarily. So it would be minimal if it is.
Okay.
And then we did do measurements actually to show the distance or to confirm the distance. That's probably better shown here. But it's over 500 feet away from the townhomes within Summit, and it's closer to 700 feet away from the closest residence within Rock Creek to the north. So.
And I assume the equipment is under 8 feet. I mean, in a way, it didn't really put height on the equipment.
The fence is built in order to screen the equipment cabinets that are proposed.
Can I ask a question?
To me?
Yeah. This is obviously from Verizon. Are we likely to get similar requests for similar equipment from any of the other mobile carriers?
So the town initiated outreach a couple of years ago, and Verizon was, as I understand it, the only carrier that responded. And then we entered into an agreement with them last February, I want to say. Is that right? In order to kind of proceed with both this, which requires this application, and then the small cell facilities, which would follow. And then they're going to probably get into that, but those will be located in order to fill in any gaps. But they have some illustrations in their presentation which clarifies how the coverage will be expanded with this installation.
So it sounds like you're saying we are not likely to get a request from for similar towers from the other mobile carriers.
We could. I mean, this certainly doesn't preclude it, but we, in our outreach, my understanding is that Verizon was, and it may be that, you know, based on users, that Verizon has the users to in this area in order to invest in the infrastructure, and we don't have T-Mobile or whatever. I don't know, but that was Verizon was the ones that came to bat. So.
Yep, go ahead.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Chairperson and members of the commission. Thank you for having us. My name is Andrew Cole. I work on the network team with Verizon here in Colorado. And I have several of my colleagues who are going to help me with the presentation tonight, and then we wanted to make sure we had the right folks to answer all of your questions. So we've got some information we'll walk through here. And the first part of it is just to help kind of lay the groundwork about the wireless industry, what our goals are when we come to a situation like this where we're looking to build something. Overall, I think the most important thing to express is just that there's an incredible increase in demand for wireless services. The number of people, well, we'll get into specifics here in a minute, but you know, why we're here this evening is we like to offer the best network to our customers, and in this case, there's a gap in the excellent service that we'd like to provide. So we're proposing this facility to close that gap. So again, you know, some of this data, there's a lot of data available, a few just to pull out, but the number of data tasks that are being accomplished on people's mobile devices is increasing exponentially. We're really seeing an incredible use and demand on the data that goes over our networks. Over 50% of households are wireless only now for their phone. And 3/4 of 911 calls come from wireless devices. So these are just some stats to help explain that this is no longer just a luxury, but something that people depend on for their day-to-day work, and especially as something to be available when needed during emergencies. So there's a couple of analogies we like to use when we look at our network. One of them here is like people trying to get through a door. You know, the more people you try to put through that door at the same time, you're going to have problems. The solution is you open another door. Another analogy we like to use is that, especially, I mean, this applies to both the call volume, but then the data itself, which, like I said, is really increasing, is that it's like a highway, that you put a lot of people on a highway, you have a limited number of lanes, the traffic bogs down, it gets slow. Sometimes people can't get on the highway at all. The solution to that is add lanes, add a whole new highway. So in this case, I think the best way to think about that analogy, a macro facility is kind of like adding a whole new highway. So it's providing a lot more opportunity for those folks to be able to place those calls and especially execute those data tasks. So just again, to help provide some context, we come into communities and often people will say, you know, I'm not sure why you need this. You know, I can make calls just fine. There are a couple of things to think about. It's not just about whether or not you can connect and make a call if you're standing outside. It's about whether or not you have good indoor coverage. It's about whether or not you can, again, do those data tasks. It's not just mobile devices anymore that we're seeing connect to the network. We're seeing an increase in wireless connectivity through all kinds of devices, the things that we are now wearing on our bodies, smart home applications, smart city applications. So there's a rise in all of that. All of those, need to be able to connect to the network. And then the other thing is, depending on when you access the network, you may think that it works fine for you at certain times of day. But again, during that rush hour type period when lots of people are using it, you're going to see a degradation in quality. So these are, probably typical reminders of what people use. Again, wireless for emergency services, the smart home application, maps and navigation. It's become a really important part of getting around. we're seeing an increased use of video and things like that over our wireless networks. This illustration is just to help understand, kind of put in context our wireless network. We understand from staff, one of the questions is how our macros facilities work with our small cells. I'm sure that you may have been reading about 5G technology that's coming out. So just wanted to help lay the groundwork on how that all fits together. I'm going to talk briefly on this slide, and then I'm happy to answer questions when we're done with the rest of the presentation. But if you think about the sort of history of our wireless program, we've built what we're really here talking about tonight, which are towers that are tall, and they broadcast a wireless signal over a substantial distance. As our urban centers have gotten more dense, and as people are doing more of those, especially those data tasks on their phones, what we're doing is we're going back in and we're filling in with small cells. So we've been building small cells for several years now, and we call it densifying our 4G network. We're basically, again, back to that analogy, if you can think of, I guess maybe if you could think about a macro facility as maybe a beltway around a city, it's going to get you where you need to go. But if you're down in that urban core, you need enough lanes of traffic to get people where they need to go. And so our small cells are more efficiently using that limited amount of spectrum we have in targeted locations to usually to add that capacity. Sometimes they're used to fill in service gaps, but most often we build small cells to add capacity. And obviously this is just an illustration. We have several macros that would cover a facility. We have sometimes many small cells, but the idea is just to understand that they all work together, right? And so what we're here today to talk about is 4G technology. We are in contact with the city, planning a few small cells in various places, like I said, to really kind of fill in those targeted solutions to make the network the best possible for the citizens here in Superior. But in general, small cells don't take the place of the need for macro facilities. They're really more that targeted solution. And so we're going to build both, I guess, is the most kind of important thing to leave you with. And again, that this is 4G we're talking about today. When people talk about 5G, there's a lot going on out there in the industry right now about what is 5G. When you boil it all down, it's really a set of technical standards that involves new radios. But Verizon has been building millimeter wave 5G, which is much higher up the spectrum, and it's like adding a whole bunch of lanes to that analogy for a data highway. So we're starting in dense urban areas, building that out. So here in Colorado, that means in Denver, where we have that network now, and we'll move into other communities as we see the need and the demand for that. But just wanted to kind of clarify up front that we're here tonight talking about a macro facility. It's going to fill in our 4G network to provide a great customer experience here in town. With that, like I said, when we come back around to questions, happy to answer anything about that, but I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Kevin Brown, who's our RF engineer, who's going to talk about our coverage before and after, so you all can get an understanding of what this is going to provide.
Hi, good evening. As you mentioned, my name is Kevin Brown. I'm the RF engineer for Superior, amongst other areas, and just wanted to kind of go through the current coverage and what the coverage will look like after the new site goes on air. So to kind of put this in perspective, there's three colors that we use: green, yellow, and red. Green basically means that you have great service inside and outside your house or your business or on the road. Yellow but mostly means that your coverage is probably not that great inside your house, but good outside. And red means that you probably don't have service inside your house, and you might have spotty coverage even on the roads as well. So I will apologize. We just actually turned up a new site right at the tail end of last year, and I did not get a chance to update this map. And it's actually at the level 3 headquarters facility in the southern part of this. However, When I did my prediction models, I don't think that it will change that much for what this site will do. It mostly will cover this area over here to this residential area over to the west there, but I'll show you in the next slide what this site will actually cover. So as you can see, you can't really make it out, but these little blue triangles, that's your current sites that are currently located, and that's the coverage that they're putting out. And then with the proposed site, fills in a nice coverage gap that we have in between Rock Creek on Colton over to McCassin. So it fills in a lot. It obviously doesn't fill in the entire gap, but it definitely, we have had a significant amount of customer complaints from people in the residential community that kind of brought this to our attention, and that's kind of the rationale behind it. I'm happy to answer any other questions on the coverage or anything about any RF specific questions.
Can you talk about that?
Yep, absolutely. So this is before, or this is current right now, and this is with the new site. As you can see, the big noticeable difference is this giant green area here for the residential there, as well as stuff south of Colton as well, as well as the shopping center where the Safeway and stuff is gets a little bit better. Currently, I think we believe the sites that we have that are located, other than the one that we just turned up at level 3, we have something over at the Flatirons Mall, which is a good portion of what the southern part of Superior is getting. And then we actually have a site actually across 36 over on one of the hospitals over there that kind of serves the downtown Superior area, as well as the sports stable location. And that's kind of really the only 2 sites that really serve this area. So when you look at Superior based on the geographical location and how it kind of is in like a bowl, it's really hard to get coverage inside that bowl unless you're kind of actually you put a site an RF source inside the actual bowl area, or if you're kind of close but kind of looking down into that area to serve it from there.
Why 100 feet for the pole versus 120 versus 60 versus what specifically, why is 100 the right?
So initially when we looked at it, I basically said, if we can do 20 feet above the current light standard, that should give us the emissions away. So if somebody has to change the light, they can climb the tower without having to turn the site off. I mean, if whoever is climbing up there doesn't feel comfortable, they can still contact our NOC and we can still shut it down remotely. But that distance was necessary to make sure that we can make sure that whoever's climbing that, from an occupational standpoint, can still change the lights without the emissions exceeding the occupational limits. In addition, I know there was a question if these light poles are actually co-locatable, but if other carriers wanted to come, there's space there. I don't know what the other carriers are deploying and what they're doing, but they could actually come in and they could possibly co-locate below us if they deem necessary. In my experience, what I've seen is there's other light poles on the property, so they typically will choose another light pole because they want that generally the same height. But there are certain situations where the jurisdiction doesn't want to allow multiple light poles to be replaced. They want everybody in one place, so it's really up to the carriers.
And and I don't understand the whole RF and how it works exactly, but so if you went to 120, would that make more of that green? I mean, if you went up higher, would it get rid of some? Would it make more green as you go up the hill?
It could, but as Andrew mentioned with the highway, with the highway analogy, the only thing that we're worried about is that if we go too high, then it starts to get into places that we don't want it to get to. And that's where, like for instance, the sports stable area and the downtown Superior area, that's where small cells really come into play. Because they're basically there to create almost like an island cell site for the people that are in that area. So it keeps them off the macro network and puts them on a small cell to make sure that they're getting the data speeds and the reliability that we stand by. So 120 feet, possibly. I'd have to rerun it to see how it would look, but at that point, I would be worried that it would get too far and actually might end up, you might start seeing that signal all the way into Boulder.
I just asked the question because someone picked 100 feet and I just tried to... Yeah,
no, that's the reason I mentioned about the Rock Creek site is I only have it pointing in 2 directions. I don't have anything pointing into Superior because when we were at that site looking to the north, I could actually see basically into CU's campus from there. So.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
Yeah, so location-wise, why was this selected? Was it just to utilize existing light pole locations? I was just wondering, across the road, across Rock Creek Parkway, we've got a dog park, bike park, and skate park that, you know, if the town were to parlay something into adding lighting in that area, would that be a possibility?
Possibly. I would have to probably defer to Beth on how we came up with the site selection. I know it was a partnership that we worked with you guys when we were talking about just small cells, but she can dig into that next if you wanted to.
Sure.
So,
any other RF questions before?
yes, I would like to piggyback on that a little bit.
Okay.
Is there any benefit to placing these towers closer together or farther apart, or you know, what's the...
Closer together for the 4G technology is probably a really bad thing, because when you start, the closer they get together, they cause interference to each other. And when you get interference, you basically will have full bars on your phone and you'll drop calls. So there's not really a benefit. Trying to do the design for these is actually very difficult, because you have to, there's a happy median on where your signal drops off and then the next cell site takes over without the customer actually realizing that what's actually going on. So grouping them all together in older technologies, that could be done, but in the 4G technology as well as future technologies, that's probably not going to be a possibility.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Brown, thanks for all this information. On the proposed map, yeah.
Yep.
Those areas that are yellowish,
Yes.
so there's green, there's like a dark red, and there's the mustard or the yellow.
Yep.
In the dark red areas, are those ever going to get covered?
That would be kind of a good solution for possible small cells, or looking into some other solution. But yes, those would probably be, we call them almost like fill-in sites. Because the areas, especially along McCastin and stuff, are pretty hard to build macro sites because of just the way that it's zoned, because most of it's residential. That's where we would have to look at a possible small cell solution.
And what would that look like? Is that another like telephone pole with the thing on top?
Possibly. It depends what's in the area. So I know that we've been working with some of the stuff with some power poles or a freestanding structure, but we would have to see what would be out there in those specific locations to make a judgment call on those.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Second question: the pole that's existing down there at Scanlon Field, to reach up to the 100 feet, are you going to replace the whole pole and the foundation and everything, or are you putting an extension on there? How does that work?
I believe we're replacing the whole. So Mark Wilson here is our construction engineer. He can get into any questions you have about the construction schedule or the materials that are being built with it.
Okay. Thanks.
You want to take that one?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, currently the
If you could just give us your name.
Mark Wilson. I'm a construction engineer for Verizon and all of Denver. So, currently the pole is only meant to hold those lights. Mm-hmm. It's not meant to hold that whole array. So we work with Musco Sports, which is the company that makes almost every light pole in the U.S., to replace it with one that's structurally sound. So we'll pull that existing foundation out, put a new one in, and put a new taller pole in, and then put the existing light fixture back on it.
Okay. So from town planner Stephen's description of the tower, that it's 12 foot by 12 foot by 12 foot panels up on top.
Mm-hmm.
So then, you've engineered that pole to withstand that.
Yes.
Have you been up here in a windstorm?
So we submit for a building permit
Mm-hmm.
that goes through the wind coding.
Okay.
And I'm not an engineer. I don't have a stamp, but there's someone who does stamp it. And so
Okay.
they will make sure it's up to code.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
And from a scheduling standpoint, we're coming up on baseball season. I don't know when this is going in, but what's the elapsed time from when those lights come down to they're back on again?
We really just do it when you guys let us. That's the easiest way to put it. I do schools and stuff all the time. We wait till summer. If I get the go-ahead in October, I wait until school's out.
What is the elapsed time take it down and have lights back up and working again?
You know,
30
Musco's
days?
really good about getting out. We could probably get it down and back up in about 2 to 3 weeks
Okay,
to get it fully operational. And then our total construction time is about 60 days.
okay. Have that in consideration as we're coming into the season here. so,
Definitely.
okay, all right. Any other questions for the applicant?
Beth, did you want?
Nope. We have additional presentation or
Yeah.
go for it? Yep.
We can kind of touch on a little bit more. My name is Beth Hickey. I work for Reliant Land Services.
Thank you.
I was hired by Verizon to choose and work with the town as far as location and design. And what I will touch on is how we chose this location. This section here, this part of the presentation, basically says this is what a wireless facility is. It has 3 sectors in order to cover a certain area, and it's designed in order to balance out the traffic in that area. So the sectors will be facing directions that properly adjust to the usage in the area. So this particular location, when Verizon said, hey, Superior needs some coverage, I get a map that has a pin in it and says, this is the approximate area that we're looking to cover. From that point, so this is kind of where Verizon says, hey, we've got this gap in service. Where can we go find some place to put it? So I will take a look at the town of Superior's zoning map. I'll start there to find out which properties we can actually make this kind of installation, what our height restrictions are, what kind of utility plans can we bring in to determine which properties in the area are feasible for a build like this. This particular park fit all of those criteria, which is why this particular location was chosen. Not only that, someone had mentioned the dog park across the street. There, in the community park, there's already these existing ball lights, and so there's already an existing vertical structure. So to be able to take advantage of that and have to build something new for everyone to see, it's much easier to tack on something on top rather than have to go through and add something new to an area. It's a little bit more palpable from an aesthetics standpoint. So Community Park filled all those check boxes for us. The town was interested in potentially working on a lease with Verizon, and so that's how we chose ultimately this area. And this is that process. You've already seen some of these photo sims, but these are some of the views that we'll see from various locations around the park. The equipment, one thing I don't know that was mentioned, but the equipment on the ground does have a 9-foot wooden fence to match the existing fence that's going around the park at that location. And this is a picture of, or a rendering of our access easements and utilities. So again, you've already seen this, but our tower there, the ball field light, along with all of we're going to be running utilities from the south and then coming in through, oh, thank you, along this sidewalk here, and then the connection between the ball field light and the supporting equipment. So all of this will be done as part of the construction process, obviously. The property will be returned to the condition that it is today. So no one will have seen, or there won't be any remnants of the construction when we're done. And this is essentially our run from the tower, which is our ball field light, up through into our equipment cabinets. Same thing here. This is just our views to give you an understanding of where the equipment cabinet is in relation to the ball field light and how those two connect and support each other. And this here is just some details on how we are adhering to all of the codes and compliances for the town of Superior. There had also been a question about the height. There is a 100-foot height restriction. So we had to cap it out at 100 feet. It just so happens that it worked perfectly for that extra 20 feet that we needed for maintenance to be done on the lights on the ball field. And that's my portion of the presentation. I went through it rather quickly. Can I answer any questions for anyone on that? The location?
I've got one question, and I'm not sure if you're the right one to ask it, but what happens when 5G comes out and 4G is obsolete. And again, I don't know that it'll ever be obsolete, or the next technology comes out and we have a pole up there with this big ugly looking thing that now no one uses.
Well, I'm not sure, Kevin, if you want to, or I'm sorry, Andrew?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pardon me.
So I think the best way to answer that question is that 4G and 5G are going to live parallel for an extended period of time. Now, I'm not going to be able to predict exactly what that, and I don't think anyone is. I would feel comfortable saying for at least a decade going forward, we're going to have the same, we're going to have both. Now, like you said, when can get really technical really quick when we get into, what is 5G and what's not. But the reality is that there's a limited amount of the radio frequency spectrum that's available to be used, period, right? It's a finite resource. And then within that, there's all kinds of uses out there. At the end of the day, like we're using all of the spectrum that we have available to us. I don't see the spectrum going away, if that makes sense. So like I said, we're deploying millimeter wave, which is a new part of the spectrum, really to serve wireless consumers. But the other parts of our spectrum that we're using today, we're going to continue to put to use. We're going to, I guess, to go back to the road analogy, we're not going to want to take any lanes away, if that makes sense. So it's going to continue to be useful in some way, and we're going to continue to have a need to broadcast it.
I have a design question.
Sure.
Can you bring up the view from the park, from the walkway in the park that can see the fence?
This right here? You talking about the wooden fence?
No, when you can see the wooden fence from the park sidewalk. So I thought you had one there.
I think that was in Stevens.
Do you have that, Stephen? Yeah, that one. Okay. I'm married to the cultural arts chairperson.
Okay.
And so she, we don't build without art. And I wasn't going to bring this up until I saw this picture. And so we do like to think about art. We're trying,
Sure.
The Cultural Arts Committee is always thinking about it. And this looks like an opportunity to do that, whether it's a mural or something. And so I guess question one is, are you open to, are we allowed to do that on the exterior of a fence that's hiding a facility? Is that?
Yeah, I haven't had that question posed before,
Okay.
But we certainly do have other jurisdictions that ask for some kind of aesthetic to be entered into, whether it's, I came from Arizona, wrought iron design that has to do with the desert and things like that. So
Yeah. So if you could look at it, I know
he thinks that's fine.
Yeah, the board is we're really trying to drive art in town, and this,
Sure.
just looking at this and where it's at,
Yeah.
it seems like an opportunity. So if we could consider that, and we'll pass it along to the board to consider.
Yeah,
And then,
absolutely. That's something we can absolutely take back to Verizon and work through.
okay, and then the committee can work with you on what you might do.
Sure.
So, okay, cool, thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to take that a step further. Are we talking a square structure that's being built around utility boxes or utility style boxes there? Or are we talking about a flat face, one-sided privacy fence that's going to be?
It's four-sided privacy fence.
It's four-sided privacy fence?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And along those lines, any reason we went with 6 foot, or you went with 6 foot cedar fencing there as opposed to something that is?
I think it's actually
more
8.
compatible, or
It's
8 foot
yeah.
privacy fencing?
If I recall correctly from our site walk, I believe that's what the fence in the background behind this berm here is. Unless there's a construction piece I'm missing. I believe we were doing our best to mimic the surrounding fence.
I think I wasn't on that site visit. I was busy with other applications, but my recollection was the fence is actually porous, so you could actually see through the fence that screens the Franco ditch, and we want a full screen on this. So, cedar's, fairly attractive. I don't know that it matches, I guess is the only clarification I'd have, but, that's what the town would ask for so that you actually don't see into it. And they do have lighting on the inside. I guess that's something that we didn't mention. So if somebody needed to come and access it, you know, after hours or during the dark or whatever, they would actually have that ability to still maintain that area with lighting. But yeah, the fence is probably more of a request from staff to have a full screened area than, and I don't know whether or not it's a security thing for Verizon as well, but.
If there's an aesthetic request, Verizon is always looking to work with our partners. So if there's something particular, like we were asking with the art, if there's some particular material or product that you're looking for, let us know. We're happy to be able to consider those things and work with you to make it be something palpable for you from an aesthetic standpoint.
Okay, thank you. Yes. You know, in terms of durability as well there, you may want to look at something different, either something that mimics closely the fence that encloses the ditch or, you know, something like that. So, okay, thank you.
Sure.
So on the lighting, is that, oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, in conjunction with Commissioner Stewart's comment, the exterior fences around Rock Creek are HOA property, belong to the Rock Creek Master HOA, and they're built on, I think, 6x6 posts, which might be a smart idea if it has to be completely covered up. Stephen,
Yeah, you won't see the posts on the inside.
Well, no, but to make sure that it's sturdy enough to withstand a lot of time and weather and everything else. So the exterior fences around Rock Creek are in great shape for the most part. That's because they're all 6x6, you know?
Okay.
That's just my comment.
I'll let Mark speak to some construction matters.
Yeah, we can do metal posts if you want to do that on the inside of it. Sure. We can do a metal structure. And then, Mr. Stewart, to your comment, we were originally doing something aesthetic so you wouldn't see inside. So the cabinets inside are about 6 foot tall refrigerators. And so they look like refrigerators, they're white cabinets. And so if you did like a wrought iron or something like that, you could see right through it and see them. So I think the original wood fence was that it was completely covered so you wouldn't see inside at all.
Is there a noise component to this?
There's 2 small air conditioning units on the front with the main road right there and the fence around it. You're not going to be able to hear anything from it.
Okay. And the lighting, is that on all the time or just when maintenance is being done?
They're just 2 little lights kind of just posted by the door, and they're on a timer. So if the tech needs to go in there at night, he just flips them on, and then he can see in the cabinets.
Okay, so they're just as needed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's one here and one here. In
Okay.
each corner of that front area.
Okay. All right. Do you guys have anything else? Is that it? All right, excellent. Any more questions for the applicant?
Just one more thing that came up for me. I'm wondering about the radius, the mile radius of the proposed tower now and how that's compares to what we currently have there.
I would actually need to measure it out. So typical with 4G for good cell service, if we can go back up, thank you very much. Typically it depends on a lot of different things. So it depends on topography, but typically you get somewhere in the range of a half mile to 3/4 of a mile of good service out of these things. That's why it doesn't fill it in completely, but it does fill in a substantial portion. But I could do the measurement for you and let you know what each level would be at this after the site would be turned up. But typically 3/4 of a mile to a mile, depending on the height and the antenna that we're using.
Okay. Thank you. I don't think I need more than that. I was just curious.
Yep. Every site's different. It really depends on where the site's located, and if it's on top of a hill and it sees, mountains, it doesn't go very far.
I do have one thing. I'd just like to say thank you for addressing the concerns of the community of helping with cell service and other data service, because I don't use Verizon, but I have the same similar lack of service in my house, on my phone and things like that. So the fact that you guys stepped up I'd just like to say thank you from the community for doing that, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who are going to be very happy when this is done. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. We're always thrilled to provide a great service to the community. So.
And also, thank you just for answering our questions. A lot of this is just curiosity on our part to understand the technology and how it works. And so
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
good to
And
know.
we're always, it's great to be able to come in and help educate folks on kind of the state of the industry and what's going on. And again, what ultimately your fellow citizens are experiencing out there. So thank you all for the opportunity.
Right. Thank you. All right. Anything else for Stephen? No. All right.
The only thing I'd mention, I mean, I told you earlier, Bob, that I'd go over what Lisa had.
Oh, yeah, you
had
did have
mentioned,
comments.
so
Yeah,
I'll
thank you.
just kind of relate those to everybody. Her first question was just whether or not, this line was avoidable in terms of there was a tree that looks like it would be in conflict. All of the utilities are going to be bored, so there's not going to be a lot of excavation going on. We don't anticipate this tree being damaged, but should it be damaged, we can look to replace it. That was her first comment. And then she asked about the lease area relative to the ball field. I guess I have to go down. I don't know why it won't advance for me. So this lease area is 20 by 20. And there's I think this is the fence line for the ball field. Maybe it's here. I can't see it right now. I apologize. But it does extend, the lease area does extend into the ball field. And the reason it extends into the ball field is because, at 100 feet, this is a much bigger structure than it is at the ground where it's, a foot or, 2 feet in diameter. So the lease area is just to allow them to have their equipment to get up to this area in order to maintain, install, do all those things. So it's really an aerial type of lease. We don't anticipate them needing to be within the ball field in order to access it. And then the last thing was about co-location, which you guys have already asked, and they've responded to. So,
okay. All right. Any comments based on that? Go ahead.
I had one more question for Mr. Wilson. Those refrigerators that are in the enclosure, how tall are they?
They're about 6 feet tall, and that's why we went with an 8-foot fence. On a lot of our sites, we go through it with a 6-foot fence, and you get to see just the top little edge. But the city requested that we go with 8 foot.
Okay, very good. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Last call. Anything else? All right. We'll go ahead and close the hearing. Great. Public hearing's closed. Discussion. Or a motion?
Well, I think for me, everything comes down to emergency services. Having pockets of unavailable connectivity for Superior residents it's really kind of unacceptable. And any time that we can improve that service, we should take advantage of that.
Anything else?
I was watching the town board meeting with you all several weeks ago. I think you've met with them a few times. And they were talking about future development of other sites around town, and that they'd only be put into rights of way. So to fill in those gaps and those spots in that map, I just want to reiterate if anyone's concerned about that, because this will, I think we're going to have more applications like this coming before us. And the directive was that all the uses that they have to be in the right of way. They can't be in your yard or my yard, things like that.
The only thing I'd like to just add a note to consider an art component to the 8-foot fence.
Yeah, I think we typically kind of pass that along to the board rather than condition it.
Oh, I don't want to condition it so much.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, I don't want to
Okay.
condition it.
Just as a
Just that we
recommendation.
get that, make sure that that gets passed
Okay.
along in our recommendation. Is that cool? All right.
Sure.
Okay. I've got this up, so I'll go ahead and make the motion since I don't see it written up anywhere. So make a, let's see. I recommend a resolution of the Planning Commission of the Town of Superior to recommend approval of the Rock Creek Ranch filing number 20D, final plat site plan number 36, case number FBSB-2020-01. This is resolution number PC-1, series 2020. And I don't need all the whereases, right? So
You just say as drafted.
as drafted is good. All right. Got a motion? Need a second? Got a bunch of seconds? Pick one. Oh, Commissioner Harper. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, it's unanimous. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right. What's that? Yeah, we'll go over that in a minute. I was going to give them a minute to get out of here, so. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so next on the agenda is our work plan.
Correct.
And you've provided our 2019 plan.
I did. I made a couple of updates just so that, only to the title here, that is the 2020 draft for now. But if you have changes you want to make onto this, I guess, I don't know how far we got with any of these items in 2019 due to the amount of development review that we were kind of tasked with. So I don't know if you guys have changes or if you want to kind of continue with the same outline. I didn't get any real direction from anyone offline, other than Lisa, who said to keep it simple. So.
Well, I'm hesitant to put the Northwest planning on. That was sort of taken off our, I mean, there just wasn't much interest in that from this current board, so.
I'm reluctant to take that off because I actually came to the
Microphone.
The town board had an open meeting with Brixmore in June, July,
I can't recall, but yeah, over this.
during
over
the summer,
yeah.
where Brixmore's representative came and said, and talked about what they were thinking of in terms of their other developments. And they are actually open to some redevelopment in the market area. And so I think the gentleman talked about they built banks or something like that in parking lots, small branch banks, which might or might not be suitable for us because we have the Bank of the West in the corner there anyway. But I thought the fact that they were actually looking at ways of using parking lots more creatively than just leaving them empty for 5 days a week was, movement in the right direction. And so I would actually think that it would be good to push a little on that. I mean, some of the trustees, particularly Kevin Ryan, were saying, we'd like to see something here. And Brixmore were very reluctant to commit to any kind of schedule or whatever. The comment was primarily that they needed to find somebody that they could work with and rely on. But I still think that's an important feature for the town. I mean, it's still generating $6 or $7 million a year in sales tax. And I think it goes with the last item, keep informed about regional planning, because now that Kohl's has closed over in South Louisville and Ascent Church has bought the old Sam's Club building, there's clearly going to be work going on there. So, I actually think the Northwest area, there's going to be activity going on there, and I think it would behoove us to stay involved with that.
So I guess the question is, what would the planning commission, what would our involvement be from we instigated this, which is great. That's happened. At this point, it's kind of in staff's hands. I think anything that would come forward would be a development project. So I'm not opposed to it. I agree with everything you said. I just don't know what the work plan item would look like. What is it that we would do, I mean, short of, keeping it on our radar, which, I think would happen by nature of any projects that came forward. But as far as, we've done a plan, that plan was kind of turned down, but the bonus of all this was that it lit a fire under Brixmor, and something might happen, but I'm not sure what we do. So.
I'm not either, but I guess one of the alternative things that we could do, I mean, I mean, I agree it's not very helpful to say we should do this without having some concrete concept to put forward, but I'm reluctant to take it away, because then it will, my feeling is that, then you're not even seeing it as an item to work on. I think that I think that the marketplace area over there, it's an important area to the town.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I was a little disappointed that we didn't get additional direction with the plan, with the work that we did, but we didn't. And
could we put a plan item on that says harass the trustees about this every month or something like that?
Well, you could maybe say at our, because we usually have an annual planning session with them or something, we could say at least bring it up and address it and keep the
Microphone.
Darn it. We could say at least at our annual meeting when we talk to them, to at least put this as one of the topics we continue to at least address with them, and keep it current in their mind, if nothing else.
Well, the last bullet, we can leave Northwest Superior Planning Project action item on there with the last bullet that says, including regular updates from staff regarding the status and progress of recommendations in the plan. I think it's in staff's court at this point. Is that accurate, Stephen? Is there anything you guys can see that we would?
Northwest area plan, I think it's almost in Brixmor's court, in order to do anything out there. I still, am hopeful that, and I think it's out in front of everybody, as much as it's going to be through the ULI study and through the work we did with Clarion in order to make recommendations and to actually look at this area kind of closely, that, we shouldn't let it fall off the radar, that it's an important, commercial asset to the town. But what happens next is I think there's one of two things. It's either Brixmor comes forward with an application and we process it, or, if it gets to the point that town could actually, be the applicant on an application, but obviously Brixmor itself will sign off on it. So the rezoning piece to allow for residential uses or to allow for more office uses out there is key, and there are other towns or municipalities in the past that have taken more of an active role to kind of either, waive the application fee or process kind of the application on behalf of the applicant in order to get those allowances there. And that's just the first step. Obviously it wouldn't be a development application. It's just to relax the zoning in order to allow for those uses. So those possibilities kind of still exist, but until we get direction from the board to do that, I don't see it being a staff responsibility until that direction comes down. So.
And do you have time to do that anyway? That was one of our issues. It's staff time.
I don't know. At first I thought I was going to be a lot less busy, but it's all the applications that have kind of piled up. So I'm not that I don't have a lot of free time, but it's a lot more. I guess I can consider that a lot more now than I could, 4 months ago. So. And I don't think that would take that much. That's a fairly simple to update a planning document or plan development document. It's not that difficult. It's just and we have some basis to go off of based off of what Clarion recommended. But again, we kind of presented that to them, and so until we get direction from the board or I get direction from the town manager, it's not really on my to-do list.
Well, why don't we just leave the last bullet point on, because that's more of an update component. And then I agree at our annual dinner, I think that would be really good to have on the agenda.
It's my understanding that there aren't going to be any more dinners. Meetings start at 6 o'clock, and there are no more work sessions. Everything is handled during a meeting. Now, I hope I'm saying this right, but this is my recollection that there won't be any dinners with any of the committees, including Planning Commission. I can verify that and send everybody an email.
Will there be meetings?
I don't want you to go any further.
So dinner or not, there won't be even meetings with any committees?
No, I think the update, I mean, that's my general understanding too, and I wasn't at the meeting where this was discussed, but that's my general understanding, and I think the idea is that, you know, somebody like a chair could come to the meeting and provide an update from Planning Commission as part of the comment period, but I don't know that we're going to have and I think that concept plan meetings would still be treated the same way, where you are invited to come and, you know, but I don't know how they're going to work those in.
So no conversations with the board?
If they're really not going to have work sessions.
No conversation with the board to get direction on where they want us to go?
There is a, and I don't have the agenda with me, but it has advisory committee presentations or something like that on the agenda. And I think that's where everybody, all committees come to the board at that point.
All right.
But,
and I'm sorry, I'm going to sound like a hard ass here, and I apologize, but I'm not going to sit here and build a work plan if I can't have a conversation with our board. So I have no interest in building a work plan if we can't converse with our board about what they want us to do. I put too many hours, way too much time on this Northwest area plan to where it was shut down, right? Because board changed and there were different interests. So if this board doesn't want to have conversations with its planning commission, then other than our responsibility as a planning commission to review and comment on recommendations and development, which is what our responsibilities are, if you guys want to come up with some other things, I have no interest in building a work plan if I can't have a conversation with the board. That's where I sit right now. So that's very upsetting. And I'll take any comments from anybody and we can build a work plan, but I'm not going to work on stuff if I can't talk to our board. So.
So isn't there some legality there in terms of a board working with the Planning Commission? You know, it seems to me that of all the committees or commissions, you know, we serve at the pleasure of the board. And in order for us to understand what we're supposed to do and have direction on where we're supposed to go, it seems to me that there would be some legal requirement that they meet with us, or at least in some form or way give us direction about what is expected of us and what our role is.
Yeah, I mean, typically it would be whatever is in the code. You know, if there's something in the code that specifically states that, that would be the extent of the legal obligation. I mean, typically advisory boards and the Planning Commission, you know, serves in advising and giving recommendation to the Board of Trustees. So, I mean, as far as I don't know offhand, but I don't think there's any kind of requirement in the code. I have to look through the code, but that would require some kind of sit-down communication between the two boards.
But the Planning Commission's a statutory, I say statutory, I mean, it's required, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, no,
all of the other committees are at the board's discretion.
Right,
but
correct.
we have to exist.
Right.
Right, and I understand that there's disappointment in not having a formal sit-down dinner and meeting with the town board, and I don't want to, I don't take that lightly. I think that the direction, as I understand it, and it hasn't come directly to me, and again, I wasn't at that meeting, was just that instead of having those work session dinners, they're going to reserve time during the meeting. So it's more that you come to the podium. It's more formal and not as, you know, like as much of a group. I mean, you could all stand at the podium and take turns discussing it, but I understand that the previous format was probably more informal, more comfortable, more, you know, more of a dialogue generating situation than just standing at the podium and directing your comments to the town board. So, but the communication isn't cut off. I guess that's the clarification.
It certainly sounds like it. So if we can't have, that is not standing at the podium and trying to get the board to respond with a mayor who very likely may not respond, depending on what the agenda item is, or a board that may not respond. I'm sorry, I I've been here too long. I know what that looks like. I know what it feels like, and I know no, that's not appropriate. And I'm making that clear in a public forum. I'm not going to stand for it. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and build a work plan if I can't communicate with our board. I'm not going to do it. The rest of the commission's welcome to. I'm not going to participate in something that I can't get feedback from the board and understand. I'm not going to waste my time anymore. That's insane. So.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I think I've observed is that even on these final development plans, when they come through, that, I mean, we really just act as a dress rehearsal for the presentation to the board. And I mean, I watched some of the board meetings on the videos, and they go 4 or 5 hours, and a lot of the questions they ask are the same ones we ask. I mean, I would have thought it would be in the board's interest for us to get together and say, okay, when these development plans come, what do you want us to do that will shorten the amount of time you have to put into it? I mean, what the board is proposing is actually a lack of, I mean, if that's what they are proposing, seems to me to be a rather large lack of cooperation in trying to achieve the best possible outcome.
So Stephen and Phyllis, I wasn't at any of those meetings either, and this is the first I'm hearing of this. What motivated the board to change the format? Were they trying to save time? Were they trying to streamline something? What, you don't know?
My understanding is because of the lateness of the meetings, but you know, and wanting to get started earlier at 6 o'clock. So.
Okay. So I think, you know, having, as I've said, as Commissioner Chairperson McCool is, that having a whole group of us stand at that podium and one after the other discuss this, we're going to be here for a long time. So I think that their decision is very counterproductive.
I'd like to suggest that I'm going to communicate with the board and the mayor. And I mean, if you guys want to try to pass a work plan today, I'm cool with that. But my next step is I'm going to reach out to the board and the mayor and find out what's going on and decide what I'm going to do. As I don't want to chair this committee. I don't even know if I want to be on it if I can't communicate with our board. So I'm struggling with this a lot. So I don't know whether that's, let me know what you guys think. I mean, I'm happy to do that and come back with what they say, and we can do something at the next meeting, or we can try to work through this, and it's just going to go to the board. We're not going to talk about it, I guess. So.
I'll throw my 2 cents in, I guess. I've struggled with this since I've been on this board, is the fact that I don't feel like this commission, that the board listens to us and cares. And a little bit what Commissioner Harper said is that we tend to do a lot of work, and I think a lot of good work, but I don't think anyone listens to it and knows what we've done. And then they spend time again, the board spends it. And if that's what's going to happen every time, then it feels like we're wasting our time again. Because I do think we have some good ideas. We put a lot of time and effort into it. And I'm very frustrated with it. And some of it I blame on myself. I didn't understand that we were more of an advisory, even though we're statutory, we're more of an advisory, and we have no power really. We can say yes or no, but that really doesn't matter. And so that's disappointing to me. And this is like that last straw to me also, of them basically telling us they don't care what we do. And they could at least say, give us some direction. They can spend 15 minutes with us. I just don't understand. I don't understand it either, of why, if we're either important or we're not. And I think they're sending the message, if we're getting it correct, that we're not important to them and we're not a key part of their process. And if that's the case, then fine, tell us that, and then we shouldn't spend our time and waste it doing it. So I'm with you a little bit, Commissioner McCool, that it's very frustrating. So I don't want to spend time doing a work plan either. So.
I'll just say one more thing.
Sure.
And it's only in response to, Commissioner Whitty here. And I don't know that I'm going to have like specific examples, but you guys were completely instrumental in both the toll review and the Morgan Ranch review. So we had a number of changes in those 3 meetings that you guys, so I just don't want you to feel undervalued. I mean, they may not say, well, Planning Commission raised this concern and recommended this or whatever, but a lot of those things got resolved through the process, and it wouldn't have been in the state that the board received it in, and they would have taken 5 meetings or longer to get to, the things that you guys tackled for both of those meetings. So I just don't want you to feel undervalued for the development review aspect of things.
But I think that, to me, that's the guidance that would be great, is what's important to them.
Right. No,
Or even to you.
You don't have the loop feedback. And
Yeah.
I totally understand that.
Yeah, so I appreciate your comments, but I think I would love to have the checklist of, hey, when a development comes in, you guys should look at these 10 things and click them off and give us a report on it and send it to us. I mean, that would be fantastic. And then we'd make sure we covered that and we address what's important to them and leave the other things to them if they think, whatever that is. But when we can't have a communication with them and they say no, it's disappointing.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
Yeah. And I do want to echo, I mean, there's a little bit more to the yes, no, because we did discover that it can be yes, no, or yes, sorry, we're not going to even entertain this, right? And that piece has helped us in the last few development projects, right? We're now able to say, look, you need to come back with something a little better. So I do agree that the development process, we found at least until that gets taken away, we have the ability to push back on the developer to make sure that they're meeting the guidelines. So yeah, I don't want to diminish that at all, but I'm not going to work on a work plan other than do what we're supposed to do if I can't talk with this board and have some conversation as to what you want us to do. So I mean, it's a waste of time in that respect. But
so, we have what they believe is an understanding from the board, right? And I think it's very important that you as the chairperson do go and get it directly and find out, exactly what the communication is to be going forward, and then we discuss it at our next meeting and go from there.
Yeah. Is that okay with everybody else? All right.
Yes, agreed.
Is that cool with you, Anthony? Go ahead.
I was going to say the work sessions were rather informal. They weren't a public hearing, and it was more of a conversation that we could have with them. And so that's what's being taken out of the equation.
Right.
Am I correct?
That's my understanding. There's no formal dinners planned for 2020.
No, not with anybody.
Or just informal meetings. We could skip the dinner part and just and set up the tables and have a conversation. That's not going to happen anymore either.
So their opportunity, as we've explained it between Phyllis and I, is for them to come to the podium during a certain part of the agenda for a board meeting in order to communicate with the board, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
That's Martin Toth in the background.
He knows he needs
Assistant Town Manager, I believe.
I'm sorry, everybody. I missed the first part of that question. Martin Toth, town staff. So as part of the board's work to evolve their schedule and make better use of their time, they decided to condense the meetings and just have, rather than have informal work sessions and then the board meetings, go straight to the meetings at 6. The dinners with the individual advisory committees, as a matter of annual calendaring, has been eliminated, and I think there's going to be an opportunity to have some dinners as issues come up. I guess I'm looking at the work plan, thinking about when it might make sense to have a meeting with the Planning Commission to think about issues like the Northwest Superior Planning Project, or if the ADUs project. There'll be an opportunity to have some interaction with the board specifically on issues, but not just a dinner to have a dinner, I guess would be my very shorthand version of rephrasing it.
So we could request a dinner to discuss what they want us to do in our work plan. I mean, we're not an advisory committee that has some global direction to work on art or work on recycling or work on parks or work on open space. We're a statutory committee that's responsible for planning in the town of Superior. If you want us to plan, we can help you and work on planning elements. But we tried that, right? We thought we had a board interest in in a planning area and board changed and it fell to hell in a handbasket. So if they want us to do planning work, then they need to communicate with us as to what that planning work is that they would like us to work on. If all they want us to do is review, comment, and provide recommendation on development projects, then let me take everything else off this work plan and give it to them. If they want to just communicate that back to me, that's fine. But if they want us, I'm not going to just make up some work plan without having a conversation with them. And you've got an entire planning commission sitting here willing to work. You guys know the kind of work we can do. We're happy to do it. If you don't want us to do it, then just tell us and we won't waste everybody's time on it. So if we need to have conversation with the board if they want something more than item number 1 and item number 2. I think that's it. I think those are our, and maybe item number 4, things that are in our statutory requirement. We were happy to do those, but anything else, if that's all they want us to do, then tell us so that I can adjust this work plan accordingly. So if you want to get that answer, I'll go my direction and talk with mayor and board members and find out. But I'm not going to sit here and try to make up, art or make up, it's clear what these advisory committees are responsible for doing. We don't have clarity other than those 3 things. So why am I building a work plan if we already have directed responsibilities? What else do you want me to do? Advisory committees get to go out and find all kinds of cool stuff to do. I'm not going to do that without a conversation with the board. We're talking about planning for a town. So
Bob, those are all great points to make if you wanted to bring them up, but I think the context to bring them up, I'm sorry if I missed the first part of this conversation, but the point of the work plan is to bring those ideas. If there's something else that you want to work on, whether it's Northwest Superior Plan or ADUs, it goes in the work plan.
Not going to do that without a conversation. Not if I don't understand what the board's interested in doing. I'm not going to make that. It's easy to do. It's not easy, but when you're a committee that has responsibility for a specific area like art or recycling or parks or open space, there are lots of things to choose from. From a planning standpoint, we already have defined what we're responsible to do. We've tried the Northwest Area Plan, didn't go through. I'm not going to go in there and try to pick things apart and try to guess what they want us to do and work on. If they want to communicate that, then we need to have a conversation and talk it through, and then we're happy to do it. That's my opinion. I can't speak for the commission. I'm telling you where I stand on this, right? So
So just from my staff perspective, I appreciate where you're coming from and understand the desire to focus on the core tasks. But I guess before the board, I think even before we had the dinners, the commissions and committees were tasked with putting together work plans. They're not interactive. They're not intertwined. They're mutually exclusive items. So creating the work plan, I guess in my perspective, can happen at any point. You can make any suggestion you like.
I'm sure we can. I'm not going to burn my time or this commission's time like we did on that Northwest Area Plan without communication with the board. I'm not going to do it. I mean, they can. I'm not.
Okay, so I guess.
So I'm standing pretty firm here. I've burned way too many hours of my life to do something that the board didn't want done. So
the opportunity to have that feedback and that dialogue is when the work plans are considered by the board. And that doesn't happen at a dinner.
But I think the problem is we've tried it that way, and we've done this, and then they rejected it out of hand. Instead of working like most businesses work collaboratively with all of your different functions in the area, and the board or the executive team gives direction to those teams and says, here, we want you to work on this, we want you to work on this. The functional teams don't develop their own plans without regard to the strategic plan of the company, and that's what we're being asked to do. We're being asked to just guess at what the town thinks is important, what the board thinks is important, and bring it to them, and then they're maybe going to tell us yes or no, or let us go, and then reject us once we do it. And I think that's the frustration, is that you're right, they have been separate, but I think we're saying we're not going to do that anymore. We want their direction, because if their answer is, hey, you don't need to do anything but 1 and 2, then that's clear. We don't need to do anything but 1 and 2. And I think that's okay. It's maybe not what everyone here wants to do, but at least we'd understand that, and I'd be okay with that if that's, at least they tell us that. So,
Well, then we could just send a work plan with those
Well, no.
3 items on there and just send it
In
in.
essence, what we're saying is that it's the trustees' responsibility to set the direction that they want all these committees that they've created to go in. I mean, they can't just create them and cast them adrift and invite them to come back with ideas that might or might not appeal to the trustees. It's not a good way to run a business, and I don't think it would be a good way to run the town either.
So I guess I'm going to come back to where I started, which was the work plans is the method to communicate that. The example that you're referring to, I think there was a split, and it ended up not being exactly what either side probably wanted, but the opportunity to have that conversation is through the work plan. Not to be repetitive, but this is the opportunity to have that discussion, and then on every board agenda, there's an opportunity to have a committee presentation item and talk about anything the committee is interested in. There's nothing special about just the night the work plan is considered or just whenever a dinner might have happened. The opportunity for communication is always there. But the clarification on whether or not the task is what you want it to be, you have to start someplace. And that place to start has always been the work plan. It's been that way for many years, predating the Northwest Superior Plan.
So it seems part of the, a lot of the hang-up, I guess, is on how the Northwest Superior project plan went. But this is the work plan that was approved for 2019, and it did take 4 months, 5 months, or whatever for us to get this approved last year. So, one approach could be just to look at the work plan and see whether, I don't think we really, we did 1, 2, and, 1 and 2 really last year. I don't think we had time for a lot of headway. We had a lot of discussions on accessory dwelling units, and we had momentum, midway through the summer for, making a recommendation on accessory dwelling units. So if you don't want to do anything with item 3, we could cut item 3. But I guess the one thing you could remember, or may need to remember, is that we did get feedback from the board on all of these items, and they approved all of them as part of things that they supported Planning Commission working on. Whether or not you feel like you want to continue working on them, I guess, is a different question. And I think that you have a valid point just in your, I think what I'm hearing a lot is that you're concerned that with the absence of our annual sit-down work meeting, we don't get a lot of, you don't feel like you get a lot of direction from the town board. And I think that that's just something you need to communicate separately.
We had several meetings with them. It wasn't one meeting. We had at least 3 meetings last year, if not 4, with them.
In order to get
these
the
sit-down meetings. And if those are going to go away, I have a problem with it. I just have a very serious problem.
I think the dinner is what's, the...
Whatever you want to call it.
Right,
I don't have to have dinner. I know we keep saying dinner.
Right.
If we can't sit down and have informal discussions with our board,
it's going to be project by project, because like you mentioned, Bob, there were several occasions where there was work sessions that were specific to the Northwest Superior Plan that happened that had nothing to do with being part of a regular calendar of dinners. Those were project driven, and when those come up, that made sense. And if there's an item that the commission is interested in pursuing next year and the board has it on the work plan for, not next year, for this year, it's going to make sense to have additional meetings. Those will be scheduled. This isn't a preclusion of meetings. This is it's just the communication technique at this point.
But I'll just pick out one thing. I don't think that the Planning Commission should drive affordable housing if the board doesn't believe in that. And so if we bring a plan just because I want to do that to them, that's not how it should run. It should run, the business should tell the areas what they should work on and develop it. It shouldn't be up to us just to say, I want to go work on this, or I want to bring this company in, or I want to do this. We need direction. It doesn't work to have everyone make their own decision of what we should bring to the town board. It wastes a lot of time, and it's not how businesses are run. You don't do budgets that way, you don't do annual planning that way. It comes from the top and is pushed down. You don't have everyone in the company saying, I want to do this. It doesn't get done that way. So I disagree with what you're saying of how it's done, because it doesn't come from us to them. It comes from them to us and then back to them. So.
Well, I understand. You don't have to. It's not a point of disagreement. I understand where you're coming from, but that dialogue has to start somewhere, and the work plan is traditionally where it's been in the past for that communication.
But that's a lot of time. That we spend a lot of time working on a work plan that might have things that they don't care about, versus them telling us, here's the 5 or 6 things they care about. Let us go back and we'll pick those, or we'll prioritize them and work on them.
But this list is where that conversation starts.
Right. It should come from them, not us.
Well, that would be a suggestion from a recommendation from the commission to make.
Yeah, and I don't know if I 100% agree to that. I mean, part of the reason I joined this, or, you know, interviewed for this position was to be able to bring forth ideas. And whether the board looks at it and says, you know what, good idea, but not this year, you know, or whatever. It's something that as citizens, I think that, you know, we want to throw out ideas. You know, every citizen in Superior should have that feeling that I can throw out an idea, but we're here to represent and say, you know, these are some of the ideas that we see as a commission need to be addressed. Now, if the board looks at it and says, you know, no, not this year, you know, the next board that comes in, or as it starts to evolve, or any of us that wind up moving up into that board may bring it back up and have that opportunity and say, you know what, hey, let's dust this idea off. Now it's time to look at it. And I feel like that's, as part of what I'm doing up here is this work plan. And so I can see, you know, we're looking at it from both sides of it. But just to sit there and say, you know, we put in a lot of work in the Northwest Superior planning and it got shot down. That's part of it, right? We did all this work and got to a point and the board turned over, right? And or whatever the decision was to shoot it down, it's part of their job, right? And our job is to do a lot of the research, put forth a lot of effort. Yeah, it's no fun to put all this effort in and then have it shot down. But I think that we also need to realistically look at it and just say, you know what, we put forth a good effort. You know what, who knows, 2 years from now, maybe Brixmor jumps in and says, you know what, let's go back to this. And then the town board comes back and says, let's dust it off and go forward.
But that's why we had the I mean, again, that's why we had the dinners, the meetings, whatever, to have that first planning discussion to say, what should we work on? And it is that collaborative, you bring ideas, they bring ideas, we bring ideas, and then we agree on it. So I agree, I think that's the best way to do it. But they've said, no, we don't want to do it that way. So for us to, again, I just disagree. Once they've told us they don't want to have the meeting, because I think the meeting is the important, you have planning sessions in your business. It's how you run a business. And to say we're not going to do that, I just don't agree with the structure, I guess, so.
To Martin's point is that this work plan is our expression to the Board of Trustees. If they don't like the Northwest Superior plan that we've come up with and they want to table it, that's their prerogative. And like, I agree with Commissioner Reese, in a year or two, Brixmor may come around and want to redevelop that over there. And the town board may recognize, whoa, we need to do something to protect original town from all these investors and builders who are popping in there. Let's dust off that Northwest Superior plan that they were working on 2 years ago or whatever it was, and let's reevaluate that. And so my recommendation to the Planning Commission is to change the date to 2020 and send this up the river.
Fine.
Because I don't think anything should be taken off of this, because I think it's all very valuable. I think we've done an incredible amount of work, and I don't think we're finished.
I agree with that. I think we stamp this and send it forward. I think it's a very convoluted process that we're using, and where we're going and trying to accomplish our work plan and our work plan for 2020. I agree that it's not traditionally done this way. But if this is how we have to engage our town board, then I'm ready to move forward with the work plan as it is. And then if I'm understanding correctly, we'll be able to sit down with our board and ask for more direction. For example, what do you want us to do in regards to Northwest planning project? What would you like us to do regarding the comprehensive plan and so forth? And, you know, I hear what you're saying. I agree. And for me, it's a little bit backwards way of doing it, you know, because being in the corporate world, generally plans aren't structured this way. And I think it really speaks to why some of the meetings have to last 7 or 8 hours as opposed to, 4 hours when you can accomplish some of the same things. It's just a matter of process. And if you are skilled in being able to process different things, you don't have to process them over and over again. It all becomes part of the plan, and it gets submitted and it gets set as a plan. So, I feel that frustration, but I think that, based on the way things have been structured throughout the years, we move ahead with this and then try to engage our town board around more direction.
Yeah, it just takes a motion. I'm just a guy here, so I'm not going to make it, but I'll vote on it. So.
So are these, numbered 1 through 7, are these actually in order of importance, right? Do we bump the Northwest Superior Planning all the way down, if we move forward with this work plan? I don't even know if this is necessarily in order of importance, or if it's just a list of items.
It's not in order of importance to me.
It says so on the work plan. The last sentence of the first paragraph.
In order of priority.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, since the current board has shut down the Northwest Superior project, moving that lower on the priority list, I would agree with. I don't think removing it from the list is a good idea.
No, we could remove items that are listed in order of priority. We could remove that sentence. This is our tool to be able to engage the board, is essentially what I'm hearing. And I think it's a way for us to go in and talk with our board about getting some direction, asking them for some direction. What would they like us to do? Otherwise, we do what we're mandated to do, and that is essentially 1, 2.
I would add, I'm okay with doing exactly what you're saying. I would add one thing to it, though. I would add an 8 or take away the numbers and have an other, what does the board want us to do? And so that we put, here's the things we think, but what is important to the board, and have an 8th or a bullet in there so we get some feedback. Because we can't, there's no way that we identify the 7 things that they think are important.
I wouldn't think it's a bulleted item with priorities. I think it's a separate statement at the end of the plan.
Board requests.
That says.
This was developed over a period of 4 or 5 months last year, because it went backwards and forwards several times. Looking at it, the only things that we've made real progress on are items 1 and 2. We did have some discussions about accessory dwelling units, but we never reached a conclusion on those either. Unless any of these are clearly superseded or passed over for time, there's no reason why we shouldn't carry on and say, okay, we're going to carry on doing what we are supposed to have been doing this year. So I think Commissioner Willard's suggestion of changing the date, maybe remove the items listed in order of priority and resubmitting it is as good a place to start as any we're going to find, actually.
So much of this stopped because there wasn't staff time to do the work, right? I requested additional staff time, that didn't get approved. So if Stephen has staff time, we can't do, there's work here that we can't do, right? We can't write the code for accessory dwelling unit changes for original town. So if we can't talk with the board, I don't see how we do this.
It sounds like,
But fine, send it to them like this, that's great. And let's put a paragraph at the end with whatever we want to request to the board, or however you want to do that, but yeah, I'm fine with that. But there were reasons why this stuff hasn't gotten done. And it wasn't us. So, but that's, yeah. So I'd say I'm fine. Somebody wants to make a motion or wants to come up with a paragraph for the end. I don't know.
And I'll go back to my original comment, is I think that it'll be very important for you to have that conversation, right?
Oh, I will, yeah.
And just get clarification, because if we do have work items on here and we have number 4 and we get to a point and it's approved and we start working on it, from what I'm understanding, and you can get the clarification, is that there are potentials to have meetings outside of a board meeting. And if that's the case, then, and no dinner, that's how it would work. And I would be open to that.
And outside of public comment as well, as I think is what I'm hearing, is that there'd be opportunity for us to meet with the board and get clarification specifically around our work plan. That's what I heard. Now, my ears could be a little bit plugged, but, that's kind of what I heard. And I don't know if that's correct.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Stewart, if I can just jump in. The public comment reference, just for clarification, on every agenda, there's an opportunity for any advisory committee or commission to make a presentation to the board. So just like I mentioned earlier, if I wasn't clear, when the board considers the work plans, that's an opportunity for representatives from each of the boards and commission, or the advisory committees and commissions to come and explain and ask any questions or clarification items at that time. And then any subsequent meeting, there's opportunities always there for the dialogue.
Not really. I mean, the public comment period in a meeting is hardly an effective way of conducting it.
Or even a schedule, he's actually saying a scheduled item on the agenda, I think, could be on there.
Even if it's a scheduled item on the agenda, you don't have a back and forth. You can't have a back and forth or a discussion.
No.
In that kind of setting. I mean, it just doesn't work, basically.
So I guess coming back to, I think, where we started, which was if there's something that needs to have that back and forth dialogue and it makes sense to have a meeting or have an agenda item or have something, a session outside of a regular agenda meeting, that opportunity is always there. And hearing from a committee or commission that that's a request or might be needed is exactly the way to convey it.
Okay. So do you have, looks like you're writing something up there, Commissioner Malia, on...
This is just loose handwriting.
We can start.
The Town of Superior Planning Commission request, this would be the final paragraph.
Or in an intro letter that, maybe a letter attached to our work plan, maybe?
Okay. To be considered. The Town of Superior Planning Commission requests direction from the Board of Trustees as to any other agenda items the Board of Trustees would like the Planning Commission to review.
Or work plan items. Yeah, planning items, probably. Is there generally a cover letter with these work plans, or do you just put them in? How do you?
We just submit the work plan.
Yeah, but we should just add it at the end.
Okay, I'm fine with that too.
Or to put that at the top of the page and, above, or, in that same paragraph that you guys were, the bold paragraph that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's just, sorry.
Or do we just, do we look at tabling this and have you have a conversation and then next meeting?
If you took the first paragraph out and substituted your...
Microphone.
As a submission for the board, if we took the first paragraph out, the paragraph that's involved...
Do you see the problem with the first?
Substituted your...
We almost should, because I agree with that.
Then we would be in good shape.
I like that. Because this list is not, this list is not intended to support the town board's goals, because we don't know what they are.
Yep.
We have no clue what they are. And without conversation, we won't know what they are. So that paragraph makes no sense.
Yeah.
I don't know what their goals are. So sure, yeah, let's and it could be something like, below is items that we're statutorily responsible for. Is that the right way to say it, roughly? And honestly, I think those items are silly to be on the work plan. I really do.
Because they're required.
Stupid.
They're required.
Sorry. Yeah. That's what our job is, right? There are, we have a responsibility for these items, and so if there's a work plan, then if you want to,
Let's just take that paragraph out and put Commissioner Malia's sentence in, and then we can give it to the board and wait for their response, and see how they respond.
Sure. Do you want to get him, do you want to have him take that out? And,
Let me know if it doesn't make sense to you.
Do we need to vote on it, or do we need to do
no,
it?
the motion, I guess we probably just have a motion to approve our own work plan to be submitted to the board.
And that's a very good point, that the reference to support the town board's goals, we don't know what they are. That's a
Right.
very good point.
They're on the wall.
They're on the wall.
Cool. We have 2020? We yet or no? Not yet? Okay. Be nice to have a sheet with that on it.
It's probably on the website.
Probably.
I can send them to you if you like.
Yeah, that would be really good. But it would be really good to have the 2020 goals before we set ours, but and that's to your point.
But I think this, to me, it's the right way to, so if we're going to do this, we give them this before they have the retreat. They come out of the retreat and they give us back the work plan saying, here's the things we think you should, here's the ones we don't think you should. I mean, so if the way we're doing it, maybe it's a little convoluted, but maybe it will work into their process by giving them this and forcing them to give it back to us after their retreat.
Yeah, nice somebody to teach us this process a little bit. Pretty vague. Yeah, it is. That doesn't help very much.
Any changes to that
Yeah, let's
language?
take a look at that, so.
Commission to review or the commission to? You could say, we should probably say.
Prioritize?
To focus on or prioritize, sure.
Would like to add. Yeah. I think that's, I mean,
I think there's one change down below to the year, maybe you got it, keep on going down. That, yeah.
That one?
Oh, yeah, you got it. Yeah.
I have
Well, it's
a
actually
question.
2020,
actually.
right?
No, it would be as a part of the 21 budget process, right? I mean,
You're right.
yeah, because the 20 budget's already done.
Correct.
Right, okay.
I know we've talked about updating the comprehensive plan before, and there's been comments that there's very little left to comprehensively plan in Superior. Isn't updating the comprehensive plan somewhere in the town code?
Well, the planning commission has the authority, that's one of the the obligations of the board to draft and update as needed.
Sorry, can you say that a little louder?
Sure. So, under the code, one of the obligations of the planning commission is for the creation of the comprehensive plan and any type of updates that are needed. So that's kind of where that provision would kind of come in.
Oh, I see.
I don't think we've ever embarked on a comprehensive plan update without board direction. In my history with the Planning Commission, it was a directive that we were given that it's time to do the comprehensive plan. So, I mean, we can make a recommendation, but I don't think we work on it without, and honestly, I don't want a work plan approved unless somebody on that board better assign us the job to work on the comprehensive plan if they want that done, because that's a big deal. I mean, it is, and it's, whenever it's been done in the past, it's done every 5 years or 7 years, and we're directed to do it, and the board's involved in it. That's what I mean. If we can't talk about these things, then I'm hesitant to just put them on a work plan and start working on things.
The last complete one was
2012.
12,
right.
It? So we're sort of reaching the end of a period.
Yeah, it should have been done in 17, probably. Yeah, it's 8 years now, so it's a long time.
So personally, I'm not prepared to go down that path, just based on previous experiences that we've had. So, it's one of those things we can probably think about and, keep in the back of our minds, but to present something like that, I'm not down with that at all. So.
No, that's agreed. I think we would need a request from the Board of Trustees to get into that. But having it on our work plan, I think is a good idea. If the board would like us to actually work on it, then they can ask us to.
Showing that we're aware that it exists and it could be time to update it.
And did we title this proposed work plan?
They're all proposed. They're all proposed until they're finalized, but
I know, but I'm just wondering on the top of this, there's a difference between saying this is our work plan or this is our proposed work plan.
That's the final draft right there.
I thought we had draft there.
I can put draft back on.
Yep.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2020 Planning Commission. Can you roll that up to the top, Stephen?
Sorry.
Work plan as drafted, minus the word draft in the title.
So we have a motion on the table by Commissioner Malia.
Just quickly, why would we, exclude that?
I was making a motion to approve the 2020 Planning Commission work plan.
I think the question is about removing the word draft, but.
Correct, with the word draft removed.
I would like to put proposed 2020 Planning Commission work plan and remove draft.
I agree with your wording.
I'd withdraw my motion. You need to make a motion.
I would make a motion that we submit the proposed 2020 Planning Commission work plan to the trustees for their consideration.
Okay, we have a motion on the table by Commissioner Harper.
A second.
I have a second by Commissioner Whitty. All in favor? That's fine, it's unanimous. All right, done with that. And I will follow up with the mayor and other board members on this idea of communication. All right, do we have staff announcements or?
No formal announcements, and no additional firm scheduled dates for future meetings to review development applications yet, but I expect at least one in February, so.
Sounds good. You'll check with us. I know I've got a couple things in February. I think I heard at least one other has some things in February, so.
Okay.
Sooner we know dates, the better, I think. I think it's one meeting I'm out of town on, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to have a development application come back in by Monday, and that's the one that was targeted for December, so
Okay,
hopefully I know by next week.
all right. Anything else for Stephen? Nope. All right, cool.
Has there been any indication to submission or any information about what's coming in on blocks 2, 5, and 8 yet?
No. They got their hands full. They have their hands full with what they've got approved for in the
Yeah,
last
no kidding.
5 months, yeah.
Starting in.
I think the
they
next
wanna
thing
get
will
started,
be
right?
an application for the bridge across Marshall Road. That was the direction based off the board meeting.
That's
so,
good news.
yeah.
Yeah, so one other thing, does the Tesla building require a certificate of occupancy, or are they ready to go as soon as they're ready to go?
They're pretty close. They're, I think, scheduled for opening middle of this month, or the Martin may have.
They're, should be eligible for a certificate of occupancy, like you mentioned, Commissioner Stewart, around the 20th of the month, and then it's up to them when they want to open. But as far as the actual construction, the finish of the space, it should be done in the next week or two.
Yeah, it's actually good to see some movement there.
Yeah.
Now we can see some cars in there.
I drove past and looked at the exterior looks really good because they put all the Tesla logos and things on it. But I drove past and looked at the interior, and I think they'll have to work hard if they're going to finish it in the next 2 weeks.
Not much in there.
It's amazing.
Put some cars in there and they're done. I mean, that's how a Tesla dealer, but that's if you've ever gone to Tesla, they just have a car, they don't have much in them. So,
True.
yeah.
All right, anything else? All right. We're adjourned.
Yeah.